Hollywood is dying, and I'm not sure if it'll recover. With thousands of writers and actors on strike, overproduced movies being churned out, and the decline of the movie star due to COVID and social media, Hollywood is certainly not headed in a positive direction these days. Hi, guys, welcome back. We're your host, Kaylin and Savannah, and we're diving headfirst into our first segment, covering news and trending topics beyond the headlines. So, I was thinking today we could talk about Hollywood and how movies are declining now and no one wants to go to the theaters really anymore.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot going on
A
there.
lot going on. Yeah, especially the first thing that comes to mind is the whole Sound of Freedom movie.
Yes, for sure.
Um, you know, apparently things are happening, and yes, that can be a conspiracy, but just the factual side of things, um, people with certain movies, not just the Sound of Freedom, are having issues with theaters saying, oh, just this theater only doesn't have AC, or these
Mhm.
lights won't turn off, or we're having issues with the film, let me give you a refund. And it's definitely a little concerning in a way, you know?
Yeah. It's almost like they're trying to hide something.
Right.
And I mean, the thing is, like, there are people on that consider Sound of Freedom to be conservative propaganda, but then
Hmm.
there's people that consider the Barbie movie to be liberal propaganda. So people are
Yeah.
like doing propaganda everywhere these days.
Yeah, and not even looking at it from like anything political or any conspiracy side of
Yeah.
things. It's just like people are saying, "Oh, this is just a coincidence," but in my whole lifetime I've never had an experience like that. And for
No.
hundreds, thousands even of people to be
Mhm.
experiencing this, it's just a little wild. And then we
Super
have the
weird.
Barbie movie that just come out. I haven't
Yes.
seen it yet. I don't You haven't seen it yet either,
No,
right?
I haven't seen either. So I'm kind of like not wanting to talk too much on it because it's like I haven't seen it yet. So I
Exactly,
don't
same.
know. But I have been watching a lot of YouTube videos about it and
Yeah,
just like reading a lot of reviews.
clips
And
and stuff like that.
I know it's a very fun movie. It's colorful, it's bright, it's campy. So pretty
Right?
much exactly what society feels like they need after the pandemic and
Yeah,
everything. But I'm also hearing that it is a man-hating feminist hot mess.
that part.
And my personal opinion a little bit here because I don't think it's that crazy. I consider myself a feminist,
Yeah.
but I consider myself a first wave feminist,
Hmm.
which means I consider that men and women should be equal. They should be
Yeah.
treated equally, they should be paid equally. No one is
Agreed.
better than the other.
Yeah.
We're
We're
equal
all
beings
human.
on this earth together. But
Yeah.
a lot of these movies these days have third wave feminism messaging in them, which means women are better than men. They're superior, they're stronger, they can wield
Right.
and men are just stupid little, whatever.
And a lot of
And I
people are arguing the fact that there's been so many movies in society that treat women unequally. So they're like, why
yeah,
can't we have just one movie that is portraying men that way? But
and
it's
I get
kind of
that.
like you're fueling the fire with more fire, like,
But it's
or
all
whatever
of
the thing is.
it's literally every movie now. My husband
Yeah.
Ricky and I went to see the Mario Brothers movie when it came out in theaters.
Yeah.
And
I
oh
haven't
my
seen
god,
it
it
yet.
was so fun. It was really fun to watch. It was a good movie. And of course, Princess Peach is introduced, and she's not at all like she is in the original games. She's usually like, I'm Princess Peach. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
very like feminine and like kind of like, like shy and whatever.
Mhm.
And then you get into the movie and she's this girl boss, ass kicking kind of like she can't do anything wrong basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just so sick of that trope. And I know everyone is sick of that trope.
Yeah, on both sides of things, women and men, you
Exactly.
know?
Can we just like meet in the middle somewhere a little bit?
Right. Please.
As feminists, we don't need to put down men to make ourselves look better. We
Yeah.
just don't. They put themselves down half the time anyway, but
Yeah. What about these live action movie Disney movies that are all coming out? What's your opinion on those?
Oof. I don't like them. To me, you're
Me
taking
neither.
these amazing classics and you're just turning them into these money making, soulless machines.
The only one that I have liked is The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and I've heard different
It's
things on it. I
yeah.
don't think arguing about, her race, Ariel's race. I mean, they're right. She
No.
is a mermaid. She's a fictional creature, like a fantasy creature.
Right. But
And
no,
this
I think they did a
mattered.
great job sticking with the original storyline, not changing it too much, and also um the fact that it just wasn't cheesy. The only complaint I had was that it was a little long.
Yeah,
It felt a little
right.
long. But like The Lion King, I haven't seen Mulan live
Oh,
action.
Mulan is so
I heard it was
bad.
horrible.
There's no Mushu. There's no I'll Make a Man Out of You song, which I love that song. There's
Speaking of
barely
that movie,
any
did you
romance.
hear that uh the woman who voiced Mulan unalived herself?
Recently?
Yeah, like a month ago.
Oh my god, you're gonna make me like cry over here on
It
camera.
was very
What?
sad news because she
Oh my
played such an
god.
empowering character, and I feel like
Yeah.
that movie it just it made an impact on all of our lives. It was definitely like from
Yeah.
our
I
era,
love
you
that
know.
movie. I love that movie. And
Yeah,
I
and
love the
that's one of
songs
the
for
first movies that I seen portray what we were just talking about. Men and women should
me.
be equal,
Yes.
you
And
know.
see, this is what bugs me. They felt like they had to remake the movie to make it more like edgy and feminist and whatever,
But there's
modern.
plenty already.
But to me, they took the heart out of it, just
Mhm.
like all these other ones, except for maybe The Little Mermaid. They're
Yeah.
just taking the heart out of these movies.
Yeah.
And they're trying to bank off of
The Lion
nostalgia.
King hurt me, man.
Oh, that was so bad.
Because
How
that
can
is one of my
you
favorites.
some movies are just made to stay as cartoons.
I mean, I literally have Hakuna Matata tattooed on me.
Oh,
Like,
the thing is, like, you can't get CGI hyper realistic animals to emote as well as cartoon cute little animals. You know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah.
not the same
No, it's
experience.
not the same at all.
You
Have
have
you
like
seen
these
the
dead
Pinocchio
eyes.
one?
Oh, I didn't watch it. There's no way
I
I'm watching.
haven't, but just thinking about, and I know there's been a lot of talk about the original Pinocchio movie, especially after the live action came out.
Yeah,
Like, it's such a fucked up movie.
it's very fucked up.
So I just don't understand. And then the fact that allegations were, not to get into conspiracy things just yet, but the fact that allegations were made against Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
and then
Mhm.
now he plays Geppetto, like literally a month after all those allegations were made against him.
It was a
And
little
we all
creepy.
know what happens with that character. Like,
Oh yeah.
just creepy, creepy
And
vibes.
not only that, but the effort that Disney is putting into their animation and their CGI is so lackluster now compared to the old days, like the Disney Renaissance period and like the
Yeah.
90s. Like it's just so different. It's almost like no one cares anymore. They're like, "Oh, let's just, churn out these
How much
money-making
more money can we
nostalgic
make? Yeah.
ones." Yeah, money, money, money. And it's not about actually caring about what they're making and putting
Yeah.
a good like lighthearted message in it. And I don't know about
Right.
you, but I enjoyed the first few Disney movies that were talking about like generational trauma as the villain. But
Yeah.
after a while, it's getting
It's
a
getting
little
old.
old. Like,
Yeah.
like an actual like brick and mortar villain again, please. Like,
Now I will
please.
say there has been some good, some decent newer Disney or Pixar movies.
What would you
Um,
consider to be decent?
One that we watched recently that I took Lana to the theaters to see is called Elemental. That one
Okay.
was good. It made me sob, first of all,
Oh,
and we all love a good Disney cry, okay?
yeah, for sure.
But it was just really good. The storyline went a little deeper, kind of like early 2000s Disney movies did, or like it kind of gave me the vibe of like, you know how Brave, for example, that
Right.
movie was, the plot was so deep and intense. Like this one was
Yes.
pretty intense, and that's what I live for. I don't want these, like, especially nowadays with like the kids cartoons, I feel like there's
Mhm.
no plot. It's
Mm-mm.
just songs and like basic plots. So it's really nice. It's helping Lana get into like actually paying attention to movie plots because kids these days don't have a freaking attention span.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know
adults don't even, you know?
attention spans these days. I mean,
Right.
insane. But I just wanted to take a little break to talk about the brief timeline that the movie industry has seen these past few years to
Yeah.
kind of look at the decline of it and the rise. So, as we know, when COVID happened,
Hmm.
streaming was extremely popular. No
Yeah.
one could go out, no one could go to theaters. I believe a few more streaming platforms dropped in 2020 or 2019 around that time. And, we had nothing else to do but sit at
Yeah.
home and watch movies and
Yep.
shows all the time and
Yep.
binge. And then when everything opened back up again, we had the great return to movie theaters, and everyone was just so excited to get back
Yeah,
into
it
the
was like
scene
alive again. Yeah.
because it's a whole experience.
It
Like
is.
going to the movie theaters, it just really is. No matter what anyone says, it's not the same as sitting on your couch and streaming. And
No, it's
sometimes
not.
it is good to like be able to sit down in your pajamas in the comfort of
Oh
your own
yeah.
home and just like pig out and watch a good
Girl, I'll
movie.
go to the movies in my pajamas, bring a pillow and a blanket.
Oh my god. But anyways, now we're seeing with Barbie and Oppenheimer, people are getting that itch to go back into the movies again.
Yes.
I read that Barbie opened at the box office with a record of 155 million, and Barbie even beat Oppenheimer, which is kind of crazy to me
Wow.
because I know
It's
people that
wild
watched
they were
Oppenheimer
released on the same
before.
day.
Did they?
They did.
Oh,
They
dang.
premiered on the
Okay.
same day, and a lot of people, not to get into conspiracy again, but a lot of people believe that's for a reason, and that
Yeah,
Barbie, I've heard people say like the Barbie character is actually Oppenheimer if you listen closely, but like I don't think that.
that's
But
reaching a little bit.
that's a region. But it is wild that they released it on the same day. I feel like they planned that so they can get maximum
Yeah.
like box office ticket sales, you know?
And Barbie's marketing budget had to have been insane.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, did you see the pool with like the Barbie insignia on it or like the
No.
brand, the logo? The logo was literally like I don't know what to call it, but like imprinted or painted on the bottom of a pool. And they were like
Wow.
throwing a party or something for influencers, like a launch party. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. I was like, their marketing budget is
Huh. I know at all the
outrageous.
movie theaters they had the big Barbie boxes that you could stand in and take pictures.
Oh, that's kind of
And they're
cute
like
though.
7 feet tall.
I work in marketing, and looking at the marketing campaign for Barbie has been eye opening, and it's taught me so much. Like,
But
not many people have that budget, but you know.
yeah, yeah.
But as I'm sure everyone knows, I don't know if you know, Kaylin, but WGA, Writers Guild for America,
Hmm.
that they represent, they're a union, a writers
Yeah.
union, and it represents over 11,000 screenwriters. And they've been on strike since May 2nd
Heard about
due to
that.
the
Yeah.
mistreatment of these writers, how little they're getting paid, and then, of course, just the overall power dynamic between big media corporations and their
Yeah.
employees. Because we know, like, that's a huge problem.
That's what
Um,
some people are saying. That's why the theaters are being iffy about
mhm.
issues and stuff,
Oh, yeah,
like, and
definitely.
not playing movies.
I know
Yeah.
it's tied together.
Yeah.
And as of July, the SAG-AFTRA actors are also on strike in solidarity with
Mhm.
the WGA because they couldn't reach an agreement with studios and streamers on a new 3-year contract covering scripted TV and movies. So,
Interesting.
yeah, and also, so when I was researching this, I think this is just so freaking petty. This is so petty. Okay, are you ready for this?
Hmm.
So, NBC Universal, the corporation, they're being investigated right now because they decided to randomly cut down a bunch of tree branches on the trees that are lined up on the sidewalk outside their studio that just so happens to be where actors, workers, and writers were picketing and on strike. So these
Wow.
big corporations were basically like, "Oh, you guys are standing and getting shaded by your trees and striking against us. Well, fuck y'all. We're going to take your
Like, take
shade
that
away."
shade away.
Literally, they
Oh
want them to, like,
my god.
they want them to, like, die in the heat or something, you know?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, "What the heck?"
I am sad that a lot of shows are going to be pushed back. A lot of
Yeah,
movie releases are going to be pushed back. But
yeah.
I'm all for the fight, and I agree that
Mhm.
they need to be paid fairly and that they
Yes,
deserve fair treatment just like everyone else, you know?
yes. I stand with them.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was like a brief timeline of what's going on. Who knows what's going to happen next? We could be
Yeah.
entering another decline with all of these strikes going on. I just think it's interesting the past, and only the past 3 years or so we've seen, a major decline, and then a peak, and then a decline,
Yeah.
and then now another decline. There's
But
a
don't
there's
worry, if Netflix doesn't come out with your new show in time or, whatever streaming service you're on, we will keep posting videos every week. So you will have something to watch.
shameless plug. I love it. One movie I really have been wanting to talk about of how much I just freaking hate it is the new Peter Pan and Wendy
I
from
haven't
Disney.
seen anything on it, but I've like
Woo, woo. It's so bad. Okay. There's so many things to say. There's so many things to say about it. So they basically made Wendy girl boss. Woohoo.
yeah.
Wendy was already a girl boss, in my opinion. I was a huge Peter Pan fan growing up. Like, I grew up on the books. I
Yeah, I
listened
love
to
Peter
the
Pan.
audiobooks. I watched my favorite, I don't know if you've seen it, is the 2003 Peter Pan live action movie with Jeremy Sumter.
Yes.
The blonde guy.
That's the
The
best one.
Oh my
I
god,
think
that
that's
movie is.
the first one I ever saw actually.
Oh wow. I
Yeah.
still watch it to this day. I
That's
adore
great.
that movie. Oh my god. And the music is just so good. But anyway, to
Yeah.
me, Jeremy Sumter from 2003, he's Peter Pan always in my
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
And this new Peter Pan, they did race swap him, which I thought was an interesting choice. I'm not against it necessarily, but I just feel like the actor is just doesn't have any skill at all.
Yeah.
And if you watch any of the clips or any of the trailers, you could see like that poor kid. He doesn't know how to act. He has no charisma. You know how Peter Pan is supposed to have like wit and
Yeah,
banter.
the Riz.
Yeah, there is. He's not like that at all. He's like, "Hey guys, want to fly to Neverland?" Like, it's just like not Peter Pan in my opinion.
One time me and Grammy went to a live action, or not a live action. We went to a Peter Pan play performance.
Hmm.
I don't
Like a
remember where it
Broadway,
was. I
right?
think it was downtown, and it was really fun. It was actually a woman that played Peter Pan. I remember that
Yeah.
specifically.
In
Yeah, and it was really
traditionally,
cool.
in the Peter Pan Broadway musicals
Yeah,
and stuff,
it was a woman,
it's
right?
always been a woman that played it
Yeah,
always.
yeah,
Which I think is interesting. And also, I don't know, I'm kind of sad that they didn't continue this in the new Peter Pan and Wendy movie. It's ever since the Disney Peter Pan, and I think even the old plays before the movies ever came out, Mr. Darling, Wendy,
yeah.
John and Michael's dad, he would always be played by the same actor as Captain Hook.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So in the old Disney
That's
one from the
cool.
50s, and I think it's from
Yeah,
the 50s, and in the
I never
one
noticed
from
that.
2003 and all the plays. So it's kind of interesting.
Wow.
And do you know why I read that they do that?
Why?
Because Wendy's dad, he is like the villain in her real life because he wants her to grow up and move out of the nursery from her brothers. And then when she
Oh.
goes to Neverland, Captain Hook is the villain there representing her father as well.
That's so interesting.
I was like, ooh, drama. It
um,
makes sense.
have you seen that they're doing a new Willy Wonka movie?
Yeah, and that looks terrible too. Timothy Chalamet, overrated. I don't care about
They
you for
should have
that.
stopped with Johnny Depp. Like he put his own
Yes.
twist on it. I loved that one too. Nothing
Yeah.
beats the OG, of course, but
No,
come
never.
on.
Did you watch the trailer for it?
Yeah.
It was painful. We might have to
Well,
react to that on our channel.
oh, I'm down.
'Cause it was so painful. And then
Yeah.
Oompa at the end, not Hugh Jackman. Maybe it is Hugh Jackman. I don't know. Anyway, the Oompa Loompa, he's talking. Oompa Loompas aren't supposed to talk.
Well, yeah, they do.
No, they're not. They're only supposed to sing, not
Oh,
talk.
yeah, and that's right. You're right. Because they speak
How
their own
dare they?
language.
How dare
What
they?
the heck?
And I love Willy Wonka and like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I love it so much. And I was so
Right,
excited for the movie. I was like, okay, this is a fresh idea, but also it has to do with something that we love, but it's fresh.
right,
And
right.
I watched the trailer and it just severely disappointed me. So I don't know. And I heard it's going to
We'll
be a
see.
musical. I'm just like cringe.
Musicals are
I
not my
like
thing.
I like musicals when there's like a time and place for them, but for this movie, I don't know. I'm not sure. So now we're going to hop into our next segment, Behind the Curtain, where we talk about conspiracies. And
Ooh.
Kaylin has a very interesting one for us this week that I know nothing about, and I am very
Ooh.
excited to learn about.
So today we are going to be talking about the Montauk Project.
Ooh.
So for those that don't know, Stranger Things is actually based on this conspiracy that is the Montauk Project. Before we get into the Montauk Project specifically, I want to bring up the Philadelphia experiment and the Manhattan Project because they're kind of intertwined from the same time frame, kind of like that.
Cool.
So, according to Carl M. Allen, who was in the Navy at the time, in 1943, the U.S. Navy was conducting top secret experiments involving technology that would make naval ships invisible to enemy radar, aka the Philadelphia experiment.
Hmm.
So they wanted to make the Navy ships um,
Invisible.
invisible for war, Um, allegedly, an eerie green blue glow surrounded the ship named the Eldridge, and the ship disappeared. The ship
What?
was then seen in Virginia before disappearing again and reappearing back in Philadelphia.
What?
Yeah.
So you're saying
So
it disappeared?
it disappeared,
Okay. Okay.
and then apparently, allegedly, um, it basically time traveled or jumped timelines or something of that
Whoa.
sort.
That's freaking cool.
Yeah. So the legend states that classified military documents reported that the Eldridge crew were affected by the events in disturbing ways. Some went
Hmm.
insane, others developed mysterious illness, but others still were said to have been fused together with the ship. Still alive, but with limbs sealed to the metal.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Wait, what does that mean?
So when the ship went invisible and jumped timelines or did what it did, some people gained illnesses, some people went a little insane in their brain, and some people literally had limbs fused to the metal of the ship.
What?
Now, this is alleged.
But okay, but it wouldn't surprise me because if
Yeah.
they were really, what do you say, like traveling through portals or
Yeah,
time travel,
whatever. I mean, it didn't specify that, but it when it turned invisible and then it jumped to Virginia like within a matter of seconds. So,
and what year was this again?
this is 1943.
Yeah, we would be like almost nowhere close to developing that technology completely by then. So
No.
that would make sense. Like there would be some really nasty side effects with experimenting.
Yeah, exactly. So with that being said, I'm gonna jump over. So that was the Philadelphia experiment. Okay.
Okay.
This that I'm jumping into now is the Manhattan Project.
Okay. And that
Um,
has to do with Oppenheimer, right?
it was directed by Oppenheimer.
Okay. Gotcha.
So
Very
the
cool.
Manhattan Project was a research and development undertaking during World War II that produced the first nuclear weapons or the atomic bomb from
Mhm.
1942 to 1946. Now, allegedly, the scientists and members of the team working on the Manhattan Project were starting to get random weird illnesses that they thought might be from radiation poisoning.
Hmm.
So, allegedly, in order to understand this poisoning that they were receiving, they did unethical experiments on 57 mentally handicapped children and over 100 mentally handicapped adults and injected them with plutonium, which is a radioactive metal, and
Yes.
studied them.
Is this like for sure, or is this part of
This is
conspiracy?
alleged. This is the conspiracy that comes behind the Manhattan Project. So, as they were working on these bombs, supposedly they were getting radiation
Mm-hmm.
poisoning. And in order to understand the poisoning, how to treat it, maybe what they can withhold, they
Mm-hmm.
tested it on people. So, allegedly, handicapped children and adults.
I mean, the U.S. government does have a history of testing on other
Yes.
Americans.
They probably looked at it like we're going to use these people that have issues already.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's really messed up.
Like the vulnerable.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's true, but
Yeah.
that's just a little background on the Manhattan Project. I'm not going to go too deep into it.
Okay,
But I
so we have.
also have a couple facts about Oppenheimer that I learned that I wanted to tell
Ooh.
you. Not sure if you knew this or not. Oppenheimer had also almost fully discovered black holes long before the atom bomb was created.
Whoa.
So this is quoted from the scientificamerican.com.
Wow. Okay.
Oppenheimer's third paper, written with his student Hartland Snyder, explores the implications of general relativity on the universe's most massive stars. Although the physicists needed to include some assumptions to simplify the equation, they determined that a large enough star would gravitationally collapse indefinitely, and within an infinite amount of time, meaning that the objects we now know as black holes could exist. So he basically figured out black holes, but he didn't have the scientific evidence
Wow.
necessarily to back him on it at that time.
Little rabbit trail. Do you think we've discovered and developed them by now?
Oh yeah,
Same.
I believe
I
that.
think I think that our government is so technologically advanced right now, and we just have no idea how far
No idea.
advanced. No idea. Anyway, continue.
That's okay. And then another little fact about Oppenheimer is that he actually created what we know today as glitter.
What?
Yes, so he cut washers made up of a mineral called mica, as we know today,
Okay.
that would go on to hold plutonium rods inside of the atomic bomb. But whenever he cut those washers, there was a bunch of powder left over from the mica
Mhm.
mineral that shimmers and was made into what we know today as glitter.
Crazy. Wait, so is all glitter mica?
I guess so.
I
Well,
had no
maybe
idea.
not all now, but back in the day when it was first created, it probably was.
So he created the atomic bomb
And
and glitter.
glitter, which could have to do with Barbie.
Oh.
Just to throw that out there. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about the Montauk Project.
Okay.
So the Montauk Project is a conspiracy theory that alleges there was a series of United States government projects involving mind control, time travel, child abduction, and hallucinogenic drug experiments being conducted at Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk, New York, for the purpose of developing psychological warfare.
What the heck?
Now, this is
What?
what Stranger Things is based off of, this conspiracy
Okay.
theory. So, have you watched the show fully? Probably not, right?
No,
The
not
first
fully. I
the first
watched a little
season.
bit of season one, I think. Yeah.
So, they definitely show a center where 11, the main
Yeah.
character, that's where she's from, and it's these children that they're experimenting on and
So
training to
that's why
basically do
11 is
warfare.
like escaping and in the hospital gown because the Montauk.
Yes.
Ooh, I just got.
And so let me, before I jump ahead and get too excited, let me
Okay.
just continue off. So in the 70s and 80s, a guy named Preston Nichols was the leader of the psychotronics movement. He wrote a book, actually, multiple books, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, about the
Mm.
Montauk Project and claimed that government agents were using electromagnetic radiation to transmit ideas directly into people's heads. They did that in the show.
They're using. Wait, what was that again?
They used electromagnetic radiation to
Okay.
transmit ideas and thoughts directly into people's brains, basically.
So mind control.
Mind control, yes.
Dang.
So He claims to have been teleported to Montauk in 1968, and he says he worked on Camp Hero's semi automatic ground environment radar tower. It's
What?
important to consider that there is validating evidence of pre existing secret government projects, such as MK Ultra.
Yes, I'm very familiar with MK Ultra. Very interested.
Yes. So a guy named Al Bielik, not sure if I'm pronouncing that last name right, who's
Mhm.
known for The Dark Files or The Truth About the Philadelphia Experiment, Invisibility, Time, Travel, and Mind Control, The Shocking Truth, which came out in 2010, and The Montauk Chronicles, which came out in 2015, was involved in the Montauk experiments and allegedly time traveled through alien connections to the year 2749. So basically, there is a guy that was involved in the Montauk experiments, and he wrote two different shows slash, I guess it was a documentary,
Yeah.
about his experiences, which I'm dying to get my hands on and watch.
I'm gonna
But
watch
he
too.
talks about time traveling to the year 2749, and I did see some clips on from the film of him talking about it. He describes society as drastically changed in the year 2749. He said there were ground based cities just like we have now, but they also had floating cities due to anti gravity techniques being perfected. So not only do we have our skyscrapers, and I've seen there's a show on Netflix called Future of or something
Okay.
like that. And it talks about the future of different technologies within science, basically. And they were talking about skyscrapers and how they're already planning how to make skyscrapers out of better materials that are better for the environment and
Hmm.
also strong enough to withhold even taller heights. Because
Wow, that's
instead of
very
building
interesting.
out when our population grows, we're going to have to build up because we're running out of room to build out.
I didn't even think about that as a problem.
So this guy is saying when he went to the year 2047 or 2749, sorry, we had regular cities and then cities also floating above them, which I could definitely see a possibility of, especially we're already like inventing the
Yeah.
flying cars and stuff.
That's what, 50 years from now?
Yeah.
About?
He said
I
the
believe
world
it.
population was only 500 million and there was no governments, no money, no banks, and each city was run by an intelligent computer.
So then, how did they survive with no money and no.
The population dropped drastically. There's only 500 million people now in the whole world.
How, without giving your full personal opinion, of course, because this
Yeah,
is conspiracy theory
of
section,
course.
how much of this is believable to you from your research of this in particular?
There was no physical proof that he
Mm-hmm.
went to the future.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think it's real.
Yeah.
I like to entertain the possibility. I don't know about the population dropping off that much. That part I'm
Mm-hmm.
really iffy about. But
I
the
kind of do.
whole building thing, and I don't know, it sounds believable. Like if I was shown evidence, I'd believe it.
And it's also interesting to think about this idea with all the David Grush things coming out
Yeah.
in our recent videos and the hearing that
Especially
just
talking about
happened,
multidimensional beings and
time
time
travel.
travel. So I don't know. Another conspiracy that revolves around the Montauk Project is the Montauk Monster.
Oh,
Now, I don't know if you've heard of this. The Montauk Monster in July 2008, so this is a little more recent,
oh, that's, yeah.
the carcass of a beaked, hairless creature washed up on the shores of Montauk. Local newspapers speculated that the corpse had washed up from Plum Island, which is close to where the Montauk experiments and everything happened,
Right.
and was an experiment from the government's secretive animal disease center gone horribly wrong.
Ew.
Yeah.
That thing looks. If I saw that thing running to me
Now,
at the middle of the night, I don't know what I would do.
now you know what scientists claim it is, or
What?
said. So they didn't claim, they said they believe it could be a
Mhm.
badly decayed raccoon.
There's
That
no
don't look
way.
like no raccoon to me.
That's not a raccoon. Did you see its mouth? It has like almost like a beak
A
thing. Wait,
beak.
let me look at it again.
It literally
I'm gonna
has a
look at
beak.
it again. I'm gonna look at it right now while like picturing a raccoon. Yeah, not even close. Not.
Now, in the summer of 2016, a couple
Uh-huh.
was walking near the same beach where the last body was found, and
Okay.
another carcass that looked eerily similar but with webbed feet was found. It had
Oh.
coarse hair and sharp canine teeth.
So kind of like a platypus, but more aggressive and scary looking,
Yeah,
right?
it's just real creepy. So we don't know. It could be, like I said, um, experiments from the government secretive animal disease center gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? There's also a lot of creatures that I'm sure we don't know about out there. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
definitely.
so lastly, on the subject of this Montauk project, I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about Camp Hero's semi-automatic ground environment, aka SAGE radar tower.
Okay.
Now, this tower still stands, and it is supposedly where a lot of these experimentations happened.
Mm-hmm.
The structure was once a mother station to a series of smaller manned radar towers located in the ocean along the East Coast. This network
Mm.
of towers is said to have afforded the US government an extra 30 minutes of warning time in the event of incoming Soviet nuclear attacks. So this was the main like mothership tower on the actual base that
Mm.
connected to multiple towers throughout the ocean. So if someone was headed to attack us, we would know at least 30 minutes in advance through radar signals.
What good would that do? We'd be done for.
Exactly. But there was already allegations that people that stood too close to any of these towers were having extreme radiation poisoning,
Oh, wow.
random illnesses that they couldn't explain. Um, the crazy conspiracy that goes along with the tower that still stands to this day.
Mhm.
It isn't active, but it's still there. Allegedly, sadistic experiments took place beneath the radar tower in secret laboratories connected by a series of tunnels. Thousands of children were allegedly taken from the streets, kept below ground, abused, and programmed into super soldiers known as the Montauk Boys, aka all the soldiers you see in Stranger Things, like 11, who they're training to be government weapons, basically.
Oh,
Using power frequencies, scientists supposedly tapped into the consciousness and can control the minds of these impressionable children. Now, the
that's
crazy thing is, Camp Hero, which used to be the base,
yeah.
is still there. The tower is still there, and it is now a public state park.
What? I want to
So
go
you
there. Let's
can
go
visit
there.
it. You can't
Let's
go to the tower, like they have gates around it and it says like you'll be
go there.
prosecuted if you enter, like
Yeah.
but the whole vibe of it is very Stranger
Weird.
Things.
That looks very
So,
sci-fi.
yeah.
Sci-fi and dystopian, right?
Yeah, very, very.
So with that in particular, the Montauk project and like the tower, the Sage Tower,
Right.
what evidence is there out there for this? How much of it is like conspiracy and how much of it is actually like factual? I guess is my question.
So the Montauk Tower is real. It's factual.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um what the tower was used for as far as like the advanced warnings,
Mhm.
that's factual.
Mhm.
The experiments is all alleged.
Where did it originate from? Do you know?
The main so where I got this information from
Mhm.
is actually from Al Bielek. So he's the one that
Okay.
wrote the documentaries about the Philadelphia experiment, the Montauk Chronicles. All of this is information that he has given, and he's
Mhm.
someone who worked on the Montauk projects. So he really
Oh,
did work on the Montauk project and on the Philadelphia experiment,
so
but
these are claims made by someone that actually
that
like
actually
would.
worked there. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Um,
Oh
doesn't mean that it's factual. I don't know.
no.
You
Well,
know?
not necessarily. necessarily, but it could. It
It
could.
could be. I mean, it's not just a random person that's just like, what
Mhm.
if these things happen? It's someone that worked there.
Yeah, see, that's
Um,
what I was wondering. I was like, okay, but who's saying this? And then now that you tell me that it was someone that worked there, I'm like,
yes.
ooh, I can
So
actually
you
see
have
this happening.
Al Bielek, and then you also have Preston Nichols. That's who I was looking for. He was the leader of the psychotronics movement, and he's the one that wrote a book on the Montauk Project and claimed that they were using the electromagnetic radiation to
Okay.
do brainwashing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's really all I got on that, but I feel like it's interesting. It makes me even more excited for a new season of Stranger Things.
Yeah,
Might
now
have
I
to
want to
go
watch Stranger
rewatch it now that I know the conspiracy it's based on. And I feel like it's just not talked about a lot. I mean, I've
I
watched
didn't
all
know
the
that.
seasons of Stranger Things I never knew. Um, I just recently seen a few like TikToks and stuff about people talking about it. But that's
Yeah,
it. I mean,
that's super crazy too, because Stranger Things is a very popular show,
very.
and you think that people would have some idea of where it could have originated
Yeah.
from, but
And I mean, there could be a whole lot of people out there that's talking about it and it's just not
yeah,
showing up on my feeds and I just don't know. I'm just late to the game. So if that's the case, if you already know all about it, write your opinion. Miss if I missed any facts, if you know
you
anything
don't want to
cool,
hear it.
comment it. If you didn't hear about it, I hope you enjoyed and learned some interesting theories.
That was super interesting. Thanks for talking about that and
Yeah, of
you know
course.
laying
It
out all
was
the
fun.
details for us. Next, we're going to go ahead and dive into breaking the stigma, which is our last segment where we discuss mental health. Sadly, there is still such a stigma when it comes to men's mental health.
Yes.
And today we're going to explore why there's such a stigma and how we, as a collective, can change this before it's too late.
Yes.
So, basically, as we know, there's many reasons why men don't get help. There is, the macho mentality,
Yeah.
like, ooh, you're
The
tough, you're strong,
masculinity
you don't
behind
need
it.
help. The toxic masculinity, basically, the
Hmm.
messaging that, and it's really sad too, because like boys and men are taught this from the time they're like born, basically. Like,
Yeah.
you're a man, be a man, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
There's
just
such
so
a stigma
toxic.
behind manhood itself. And I
Yes.
feel like the main thing we have to break in order to break the stigma around mental health for men is the stigma around manhood and what it means to be a man.
Yes, thank
You
you.
know?
Because you can be a man and be in touch with your emotions. You can be a man
Yeah.
and have sensitivities. You can be a man and fucking cry.
If
Like, that's
anything, it
so
makes you
true.
more of a man because you're taking these steps to help
Mhm.
yourself, which in the end, in the long run, is going to help your family, your loved ones,
Yeah.
everyone you care about.
And from a woman's perspective, a woman that's married, to me, it's very attractive when men
Yeah.
open up
And have
and
some
they're,
vulnerability with you. Yeah.
yeah, and they're not afraid to express their feelings. They're not afraid to cry if they need to, or to get help with therapy or something for their
Therapy,
health.
doctor's appointments.
Yeah,
I mean, it's so
medication.
bad these days to the point of not even just mental health, but physical health.
Yeah,
There's a stigma behind that when it comes to men. And it's
absolutely.
like, it's your physical body that you're taking care of. You know?
Yeah, I know. The way I see it, like, I hate how there's so many, like we're talking about stereotypes.
Right.
And you see like sensitive men or men that are more in touch with their
Right.
emotions. They're very feminized.
Right.
And that kind of pisses me off because
No.
just because a man decides to like show his feelings or he's just more sensitive, that's just his personality. That doesn't make him more of a female, and even if it does, what's the
Right.
big deal? There's nothing wrong with being a female, like.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with a man having some feminine attributes about themselves.
Right,
At the end of the
exactly.
day, every person has a balance between feminine and masculine energy.
Mhm.
Even me. I think of myself as more masculine energy than feminine.
Yeah,
Does that make me a man? No. So why is
no,
it looked at any differently when it comes to men?
Exactly. It's just the stigmas and the stereotypes, once again, for men and women
Yes.
all over the world. And it's really sad because it makes men feel like if they feel like they need help or they want help, they get embarrassed. If something
Right.
is wrong with their mental health or they don't know how to control their emotions, they get embarrassed and ashamed about it. And instead of dealing with it, they decide to just bury and compartmentalize all their problems and hide them away instead of ever getting the proper help that they need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Or take it
detrimental.
out or deal with it with bad habits.
Mm, like
You know,
alcohol.
bad voids for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Exactly.
what's the word? Vices, like bad
Vices.
vices for it, you know?
Yes, exactly. They
So,
can sometimes they end up turning to alcohol or drug addiction,
or like addicted to
porn,
gambling, just
or-
whatever it is, you know, whatever makes them feel better in that moment
yeah,
without getting the
exactly.
actual real help that they need.
Yeah, and because of this whole stigma, and because us as a society have made men feel like they're not able to get help and that they should be embarrassed if they do, it's led to this horrible statistic, and we'll put this up on the screen for those watching.
Yes,
According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, there were 48,183, I'm going to say, unalivings in the US in 2021.
for
And that's
just
the most
men, right?
updated info. What was that?
For just men, right?
No, overall.
Oh, wow.
48,183 people that unalived themselves in the US in
I
2021. And
believe
that's
it
the most
though.
updated info they have right now. And out of those, out of the 48,000, 38,352 were men.
Wow.
You cannot tell me there is not a problem here. You cannot tell me that.
Yeah. And how many of those were just because they had too big of an ego or wanted to uphold their manhood and not get
Mhm.
help?
And that's so sad to me that someone's, life was cut short because people shame them into thinking that they don't need to get therapy, they don't need medication that could balance their brain, honestly, because sometimes it does come down to a brain disorder and you need the proper medication for that.
Yep. Yep.
It's really sad. And I feel like we've made progress in the world of mental health, but there are still many, many steps to take to really get somewhere, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to men and mental health. It's just not talked about enough.
It's not. And I actually got a suggestion from one of our followers.
Ooh, okay.
Um, and they just wanted to point out the struggles of men being taken advantage of and not setting proper boundaries. And
Yes.
I feel like that's a big part of things because
Mhm.
I feel like with men it can be harder for them to set boundaries, but that just comes along with the ego of like feeling like
Mhm.
they have to take charge of everything. They have to be the leader. Everyone has to lean on them, but they have no one to depend on. Like men,
Yeah.
they have to be setting boundaries too. There's only so much that you can do. It
Hmm.
is perfectly fine to split up duties and tasks of
Yeah.
just everyday things with your partner or with your family
Yeah.
and set boundaries for yourself when it comes to relationships, work, just everything, you know?
I feel like what you're talking about, just about men just feeling like they have to be the man and be the leader, and it makes
Right.
them feel a lot of pressure. That's a shining example of how the patriarchy can is bad for men as well as women.
Yeah.
It's bad for society as a whole because when the patriarchy
Yeah.
is in place and men feel like they have to step up and be these leaders and take charge, and then women feel like they have to be subservient to men and can never take charge, it's just bad all around,
Right.
honestly.
Right. Very true. And I feel like I said before, um, men will indulge in self-destructive behaviors instead of
Hmm.
getting help because they feel
Hmm.
like they'll be treated differently or it'll diminish their masculinity.
Yeah.
And the only way that we can help as a society or just personally with our loved ones,
Hmm.
our friends, our relationships, our family, whatever, is to reshape the perceptions of manhood.
Yes.
Whenever you have, if you hear your loved one talking down on themselves when it comes to manhood, or just kind of treat it like you would with anything else when trying to have a positive mindset, and instead of being like, no, you're wrong, don't ever say that, replace it with something positive. Now, you don't want
Mm.
to practice toxic positivity.
But positive reinforcement,
Positive
basically.
reinforcement, exactly. Don't make them feel belittled by being
Yeah.
positive, but just enforce them. Like, I know you feel this way, but it's going to be okay because we can take these steps to make it better. Like
Basically
that.
validate them because a lot of people out there aren't
Validation.
validating men or
No, and
women.
that's another reason why they don't feel like coming forward, because they come forward and then they get told, oh, just man up, or oh, you'll be fine. It's just this, or, like,
They're like, "Oh, boohoo, what are you gonna do? Cry about it? Just get over
exactly.
it." Like,
Right.
and it's
Another
really sad
step,
too because sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say it's really sad too because this once again this starts at an early age because if a girl falls off of her bike and scrapes her knee, oh poor thing, here's a band-aid, and she's
Yeah.
crying and the parents are comforting her. But if a boy falls, like, just dust it off, you'll be fine. And like, that's
Yeah.
toxic. They need validation too, they need comforting too, they need
Right.
sympathy as well.
So not only us as family members and loved ones, we also have to look into the healthcare system and make sure that they're getting a deeper training on this subject matter as well. Because not only was society treating men inadequately whenever it comes to their health, you also have healthcare professionals that have the same mindset because they learned it just like we did, and
Yeah,
they need to
that's
unlearn it.
that's so true. That's really what it comes down to with a lot of problems in society is we need to work on unlearning this brainwashing that
Yes.
we got some way or another because my therapist who will actually be on this podcast
So
soon,
excited.
um very exciting, she always tells me that we're not born thinking badly about ourselves. We don't
No, we're taught it.
enter this world preconditioned into hating our bodies or feeling ashamed about our feelings. These are learned behaviors, whether it's from our family, our
Exactly.
friends, media, society.
School. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's very true. Yeah, it's one of those things where the change is within us.
Hmm.
Nothing is going to
Definitely.
change unless we all make it happen as a society.
Hmm.
And I just feel like everyone should try to put in a little more effort, not only when it comes to their loved ones, but also just anyone that you may be interacting with that is a man that is trying to be vulnerable, and
Hmm.
encourage it, praise it.
Yeah.
Also, another thing as a family member or loved one that you can be doing to try to help make, your significant other or your loved one feel more comfortable is being vulnerable yourself, being super
Mm.
open and honest when it comes to your healthcare, your mental health, being showing your vulnerability and getting them used to and comfortable to your vulnerability, and that will automatically make them slowly over time become more comfortable being vulnerable in front of you as well.
So basically, be the example for them.
Yeah, and we do that with, like, let's say we're dating someone, we're in a serious
Yeah.
relationship. We
Hmm.
do that. I feel like
Yeah.
most people naturally learn to be vulnerable around their partner, but we don't
Hmm.
do it as much when it comes to friends and family, and that's where the issues lie. Because yeah, your significant other can tell you all of these encouraging things, but then you
Hmm.
have that stigma in your head of, are they just saying this because they love me and care about me? Is it really the truth?
Yes.
So if you have
Yes.
other people that are your friends, family, strangers, even doctors, that are also being vulnerable or praising your vulnerability, then it just proves even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And then if you don't really have any more talking points, I just wanted to talk through just a few tips about how to make a difference when it comes to men's mental health.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I'm
So the
I'm down
first
for
tip
that.
I have is to just talk. Basically, and we've talked about this a little
Yeah.
earlier, work on creating a space where men feel comfortable and encouraged to talk about their feelings and talk about what they're going through mentally. If you have a male family friend or a friend, please, please be sure to check in on them. You never know what they
Yeah.
might be dealing with. You never know what kind of place they're in mentally. Don't forget to check on them too. Um,
Especially if they're showing signs. I know they don't
yes.
always. Men like to suffer in silence, but if they're showing signs, please take the time to ask because it could
Yeah,
literally mean their life.
yes, basically keep an eye out on them. And if you feel
Yeah.
like they're changing or they're isolating themselves too much, just kind of work on, checking in on them. And of course, the responsibility isn't going to be completely on you as an individual when you're doing this, but the
Right.
littlest things can really make a difference and they can really help.
Really,
And if
yeah.
you're able to do it, I would do it. And then
Yeah.
men who are struggling with your mental health, if you're going through something, please have a conversation with someone that you trust and someone that you're
Yeah.
comfortable with and that will validate your feelings. Try to get some good advice out of them or at least get the negativity out of your system by
And
venting
don't be
because,
afraid to go to a therapist.
yes,
You know,
absolutely.
there's such a
Mm-hmm.
bad stigma behind that too. And if you feel like you don't want to go to your loved one because you're going to get a biased opinion
Right.
or you just don't want them to know your business that way, just go to a therapist. I know sometimes it's harder to find one that you like. If you got to go through 5 or 6 of them before you find the one, do it.
I had to do that.
Yeah.
It was
It's like
quite a
dating.
process.
You're not gonna be in a long term relationship with the first person you date, most likely. If you don't like them, move on
Exactly.
to the
Just as important.
next.
I don't want to say date your therapist, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's just
But yeah,
it's
get
just
to know
as
them, make sure
important
they're right for
to,
you.
yeah, get to know a few different ones, see if, they really are making a difference in your life or if they're just listening to you basically because there's good therapists, there's
Right.
mediocre therapists, and there's bad therapists. So you
Right.
just want to make sure you have the right ones. And then moving on to tip number two, encourage socialization. Suggest that they spend more time with friends and family. Plan events or group activities for them to participate in. And if
Right.
you're a man that is struggling with your mental health here, the worst thing you can do, and this is speaking from personal experience, is stay in your home and isolate yourself and shut yourself off from the
Yeah.
world. Loneliness and isolation are huge factors when it comes to unaliving yourself, unfortunately. A lot of times
Yeah.
people feel like they don't have anyone and that they're alone and they don't have a support system. And that can really lead to these feelings of doom and that you have no purpose in this world.
Yeah.
So socialization is important. We are social creatures as humans. It's very important for us to at least get some kind of socialization once a week, twice a week,
Right.
maybe more than. And then the last part is spread awareness. Mental
Yeah.
health is a widespread issue, as we know, that affects men and women all over the world. Share resources as often as you can to mental health.
Yeah.
There are many available nowadays. We live in a good age for that. We'll also share some that we find in the description of this video for
Yeah.
sure.
I know there's
Um,
also a lot of good groups. Like if you're on Facebook, that's always a good
mhm.
option too.
And also, YouTube has a bunch of great therapists on there, actually qualified
Yeah, for
therapists
people
that
that
are
just
making free
definitely
content.
can't afford it, that's
Mhm.
definitely a great option. It's not as personalized, but it's better than
Yeah,
nothing.
exactly. There's so many great resources down there
Right.
and on YouTube and everywhere. And also, when it comes to spreading awareness, like Kaylin talked about earlier, it's very important to make sure we're challenging gender stereotypes, especially when it comes to men's mental health and just
Yeah.
how, a man doesn't always have to look like, this big, tough, whatever. He can also look different from that. And same for women. And that's okay.
Right.
And society needs to know that and society needs to change that.
I feel like
So, wrapping all this up, basically, I didn't mean to
you're good.
interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna throw in a little point of I feel like society within the last few years,
Mhm.
women have gotten a lot better at accepting themselves, self love, breaking
Yeah,
stigmas behind
right.
what you're supposed to look like, things like that.
Hmm.
But with men, we're still kind of stuck in the past with those
Yeah,
biases and those stigmas. So
exactly. So let's together
yeah,
work on building a space where we can all feel safe to share our feelings and take care of our
right.
mental health. And do not be afraid to get help, and do not be afraid to try therapy. It might be for you.
Exactly. Yeah,
All right.
100% agreed.
Well, that's all I wanted to say on that subject.
Now, I have a
So,
loose shadow work question. It was kind of
okay.
hard because it's hard to reflect on yourself and work
Yeah.
on yourself when it comes to when you're not a man and we're talking about men's mental health.
Yeah.
But my question for you is think about a time
Mm,
when there was a man in your life
mm,
and you maybe didn't support him properly or you had biases when it came to mental health.
okay.
It could be, something you could have said differently
Mm-hmm.
or, having old biases mentally when it comes to that subject. And
Mm-hmm.
then reflect on how you could have handled the situation better, what you
Mm,
could have done differently to be supportive and
mm-hmm.
um, make them feel comfortable and vulnerable with you.
Yeah. I'm not really going to talk about that particular instance in
That's fine.
public just because it's
No,
very
no, no.
personal.
Just the what you could have done to be better part
Yeah.
is really
But
just
when it comes to what I could have, yeah, when it comes to that part, I
right.
feel like I could have definitely been more validating. That's something I feel like I've improved on, and I hope you've noticed too. In like the past
Yeah.
few years, is just working on validating people when they come to
Yeah.
me and they're like, I have this problem, I'm upset about this. I'll just, empathize with them instead of immediately either talking about myself
Or
or,
trying to
you
immediately
know,
find a solution. Yeah.
exactly. And there's something that I feel like this could be a really useful tip too. My husband Ricky, he always tells me when I want to vent to him about something or I'm really upset, he'll be like, "Okay, so do you want me to listen or do you want solutions?"
I love that.
And from there, we kind of just go, I'm like, I just want you to listen to me and feel sorry for me. And he's like, okay, I can do that.
I
Or
love
I'll be
that.
like, no, I need to find a solution. Like, I need to figure out how to move past this. And he's like, okay, let's do it together, you know?
'Cause sometimes
So I
people
feel
throw
like,
solutions at you when you're not looking for it, you just want to vent. Especially when it comes to
exactly.
men, that's because us as women, I feel like it's our nature to automatically want to help the ones we
Mhm.
love.
Yeah.
So the way our brains work,
Mm-hmm.
especially just the like nurturing like maternal programming in
Mm-hmm.
our brains is like, okay, how can we fix this now?
Yeah.
But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's not what they need. They've already thought about all of their options and they
Yeah.
don't want to think
And
about that. They just
actually,
want to vent.
actually most of the time I've noticed people that are like really going through something and they just want to like vent to you about it and go on and on about it, they already know what's going on, they already
Yeah.
know what the next steps are, but they just need someone to just
Listen.
sympathize with them for 1 second or just validate their feelings for
Yeah.
just a brief time, because a lot of people don't really validate anymore. I've
No, that's so
noticed
true.
they're like, oh, suck it up, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I try to
Or
be
just
better
a little,
about validating too and not immediately going into solutions or, you
yeah.
know, my own personal relative experience.
Right, right. But yeah, basically that's my short answer is just work on
Yeah,
validating more and then asking,
that's great.
okay, do you want me to listen or do you want me to help you work on a solution
I love
together?
that.
So for your question, when you find yourself or your mental health suffering, what are three things that you try to do to improve it or make yourself feel better or more like yourself, basically?
That's a great question. First, I come and speak to someone that I love most of the time, you, or one of the girls.
Yeah.
Um, you guys are my three top supporters that I always go to with my like existential crises. So I'll talk it out, feel a little bit better already from that. Try to think about things that make me happy. And
Mm,
instead of focusing on the negative, I've throughout the years going through a lot of shit have
yeah.
learned to not ignore my problems, but I've learned
Mm,
that it's okay to put things to the side and focus on something else for the day.
yeah,
And I try to
definitely.
give myself a day. And
Mm-hmm.
then tomorrow I'll worry about it and I'll handle it. But the best thing I can do is talk it through and then be done with it for 24 hours. and then
Exactly.
and then third, I like to journal sometimes or meditate. That can help because
Definitely
sometimes
help.
it's not that easy to just tuck things away and sometimes that doesn't work. So,
Hmm.
and I just can't help myself but to think about it, especially if
Yeah.
it's something like really stressful or really like time sensitive, that can be
Yeah.
harder. So or like if it's something that I have no control over for the moment and I just have to wait it out, that's when I
Hmm.
stress the most because
Same.
I'm a problem solver. I want to come up with a solution and do it fast and be done with it. But whenever I have to wait, that's when I have issues. So meditate, journal, think of all the possibilities, try not to
Yeah.
overthink.
Yeah.
And that's really all we can do, you know?
That's a great answer. And that's pretty much what I do too. Journaling has really been helping me, and so is meditating.
Yeah,
Especially like a big meeting coming up or something that I'm really jittery about, or like you said, I'm just sitting around waiting for it to happen, basically.
right. And that's when
All I can
overthinking begins.
Yeah, so I tried to, occupy my mind with something else, more work or, something else. And then I tried to meditate
Yeah.
and just regulate my nervous system and, regulate everything and help myself calm down, regulate my breathing. And then usually I'll just take my phone and go into my notes and just like type out whatever comes to mind.
Just word vomit is what I
Like,
call that.
that is basically text moment. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think this was a really good episode. It was fun. Thank
Very
y'all so
fun.
much for tuning in. As always, please be
Yeah.
sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify,
Comment.
Instagram, TikTok, all the things. Comment, give
Yes.
your input. We want it all. We need a lot of engagement here because ultimately we're trying to build a platform and trying to build a community of
Yes.
like-minded people that kind of all enjoy the same things and care about educating the public on the same things
Yes.
because I feel like it's really important to talk about.
And I just wanted
So,
to throw in a little update. We're
mhm,
still kind of figuring things out. Obviously, we're a new podcast, but the last thing
mhm,
we want to do is confuse any of our listeners in the process. When we make little changes, try to think of what's best for us long term when it comes to this podcast. So we are going to, for the meantime, to see how it works out, only post our full podcast episodes on Spotify from now on. YouTube,
yes,
you'll have our fun clips, fun moments from our podcast, or important moments. And you'll also get some exclusive content on YouTube as well, as far as reactions and specials when it comes to important time sensitive topics that we're dealing with today.
exactly. Cool. Thanks for covering
Yeah,
that, Kaylin.
yeah, of
So,
course.
yeah. Well, thank you guys once again for watching and listening, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Woo!
Woohoo!